Because just it, you felt like you'd spent your life working on something that went nowhere. And
Sure.
I went, no, I want to go back to doing something where there's a touchable result out of it. And a book is very much that way. You do a book, sure, these days you can update it any time you want to. But when you do a book, it's a finished object. It's something you can actually put out there that people can interact with, that they can value for what it is, that allows other things to happen. It actually moves something forward in the world. And that, in the end, was kind of the driving force for me to not be sitting in a corporate thing, being the hamster in the wheel, but actually doing something of my own that produced a creative, touchable result.
Oh, sure. So when you did officially then make the change from the corporate world into your company, Dreamstone Publishing, were there other books you were reading about running a business, or were there, people you were talking to, or did that just kind of come organically when you officially made that switch and turned it into an actual business?
Because we'd had the business in existence since the early 90s and just kind of parked things, reinvented things every so often, there were certain connections and things that were already there.
Okay.
In the stage when we did the art prints and things, we'd actually been a very early adopter of being an online business. So in the late 90s, like 98, 99, we had a full website and we were selling online and shipping internationally, and which from Australia was painful.
Right.
So there were all these things that we'd already learnt that I could reapply, that I could say, the update on that stuff. How do I use that now? And because I'd already been publishing my own books and digging myself into how do all the modern tools work for some years before I actually went to directly, actively working at it as a business, I'd already built quite a few connections in online communities. And I'm in something like 300 Facebook groups.
Oh, wow.
Most of them are publishing community related.
Okay.
And most of my business comes directly out of connections made on Facebook. So I don't advertise the business. I do advertise books themselves sometimes, usually as part of a launch process, not so much continuously.
Okay.
But the connectedness just spread. The connectedness of the world now is a fantastic thing. Sure, I read a scatter of books and more likely to read articles or go searching for specific things than just read a book for the sake of it. Like if I'm looking for a particular area of something I'm doing with the business, I'll search something really specific.
Okay.
People, again, there's quite a few people I've talked to and worked with, and I'm a big believer in mentorship in one way but not in another. So there's a few people I've worked with and paid good money to work with, where the result I've got out of doing that wasn't the result I expected to get.
Okay.
You never lose out of doing something like that because you always learn something. You just may not learn what you think you're going to learn. So in that sense, it can be a negative experience for people if they don't go into it expecting it may be that way. But working with other people who've done something successfully always has value. So in that sense, it's good. You always get something out of it.
Yeah.
And it's worth seeking out people to learn from, even if what you learn is that their way is not your way.
Oh, sure, that makes sense.
So that's a kind of a balancing act. So
Yeah.
I spend time talking to other people and learning things from them. And sometimes I learned that's not a thing I want to do. Sometimes that's a thing I need to do, but I need to outsource. And I learned along the way a lot about how my own head works.
Sure. So what you currently do then at your company and working with business owners who want to become writers, why should business owners write a book? Yeah.
So there's two layers of answer to that. One is about how the world has changed. Mm-hmm. So if you go back 10 years or more, the only way to have a book out there was either traditional publishing, where you were one of hundreds of thousands of people submitting manuscripts and pitches to publishers, and they chose a tiny, tiny, less than 1% of those to publish. And they chose not on the criteria of how good was your work, but on the criteria of, is the work good, and can we sell 5,000 or more of those in the local area? Mm-hmm. Because everything was regional. So no matter how good your work was, if your topic was a bit narrow and they couldn't sell 5,000 in their region, you were never going to get a publishing contract. In that era, yeah, you could self-publish, but self-publishing then meant spending thousands and thousands of dollars to have somebody typeset it for you and then print 1,000 or more copies and have them stored in your shed and you market them into shops or anywhere else. Mm. So that was a very money and time-consuming exercise as well. But what that created was the concept, which still exists now, that someone who has a book published is really important and significant because they had to be good enough to jump through all those hoops and get it out there.
Right.
So in terms of the authority creation, having a book gives you a massive amount of authority because everybody has that embedded thing about how hard it is to get a book published and to be an author.
Oh, sure.
So then you come back to the other side of the second thing, which is that most people, if you've got a business and you've got customers, then you already know that there are people who want to know what you know. Or you wouldn't have customers. They're already paying you for your knowledge, whether that's the application of your knowledge or teaching of you, it doesn't matter. They're already paying for your knowledge. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty comfortable thing to bring a product to market knowing there's already an audience for it. Mm-hmm. When you also look at it, most business owners have a massive amount of written material existing in their business. They'll have blog posts, they'll have stuff on their website, they'll have FAQs, they'll have standard brochures, they'll have handout sheets, they may have instructions on how to do something or assemble something. They'll have a collection of clippings from media articles or stuff they've put out elsewhere. They've probably got a bunch of standard email responses they give to people. Mm-hmm. And if they're at a shop front or they talk to people on the phone, there'll be about 10 or 20 questions that they answer every damn day. And they feel like, oh my God, push the button, run the tape for the answer to that one, because people always ask them. So most business owners have 70 to 80% of the material they need to write a book already in existence. It's just in all those pieces.
Oh, wow. Okay. So going through all that material, and let's say that's for their customers, is that in a way kind of giving away their secret sauce of how they run their business or what's in their head? And is that a good thing to do? Like, if I write a book about, because I'm really good at marketing, the exact steps I use to run a marketing campaign, is that going to, I guess, help my business, or will that potentially hurt it because people already then know my process?
Okay, it will almost certainly help your business.
Okay.
So let's dig into that one first, because there's a couple of layers there. The only case in which I would say it would be bad to give away everything is for people who are doing things like leading edge new maths, chemistry, science type space stuff where it's a patentable thing. You don't give away core uniqueness. But something like marketing, how many thousand people do marketing? Everybody has a process.
Right.
Many of those processes work pretty well. What makes them work well is not just the steps, but how the person approaches those steps. There'll be little unique pieces that distinguish your approach from somebody else's approach. Mm-hmm. And you can write those steps out in a book. And if you say 100 people read the book, 70% of them will never act on it in any way at all.
Okay.
10% of them will read it, understand it, say, you know, that's fantastic, but fuck, that's a lot of work. So,
no, it's okay.
And they'll be like that. They'll be, And what they will do is the bit in the back that says, if you'd like me to do it for you, contact me on. They will ring you because they'll like, or email you because they're like, oh my God, just do it for me. You're like, I really understand now. Now I know why I'm paying you.
Sure.
So those people are great. That's great for your business. Then another 10% of them will go, I'll have a go. And they'll have a bit of a go and they'll either succeed and that's great. Mm-hmm. Or it'll all come unstuck and they'll hate it and they'll throw the method away.
Sure.
Or it'll come unstuck and they'll ring you. So you'll get some of them back as well.
Okay. Oh, good.
And the remaining 10% will actually act properly. We'll do it. We'll get some benefit out of it and may come back to you for mentoring on how to do it better.
Okay.
So really, out of 100 people who buy the book, about 25 of them will probably come back to you for something.
Wow, that's great. Okay, and then you can just, work with them on another project. That's okay. Yeah. That makes sense then. So on your site, it talks about how you're able to help business owners then do a book in 3 days. Could you talk about that process a little bit? Because that seems, and maybe it's just because right now I'm trying to think about like the idea of writing a book, and it seems monumental to me. So how do you distill, this idea of something like a book into 3 days? Okay,
so you are not alone in having that. The two most common responses when people go to think about writing a book based around their business, so that the 3-day thing is primarily for non-fiction, for things based around someone's business or a particular hobby or skill area. Mm-hmm. The two things people think of is, oh my God, there's so much, I don't know what to write. So they just freeze up. Or, oh, there's so much, I have to tell people everything, how will I ever write it all down? So either way, they lock themselves up.
Yeah.
The secret to things, apart from realising that they already have that 70 or 80% of the material in some form already, that they've written down over time, so that the writing is not actually as scary as they thought. The key thing is to realise that you don't have to tell everybody everything. In fact, people don't want you to tell them everything you know, because it's a bit like saying to someone, here, read the encyclopedia.
Oh, yeah.
People are going to go, you're kidding. But if somebody wants to know about your topic, and we already know they do because they're already your customer, they usually want to know specific things. That comes back to those questions you answer all the time. And most businesses, some only have 1 or 2 products, really narrow, but most have a number of products or services they do that are all related. And each of those can be a book. So in the old days, again, when you were dealing with traditional published things and you were getting things in paper and you were paying shipping, and people tended to go like, I want to get weight, I want to get value for my money.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to know how to do paving, they would buy a 400-page book on home improvement and pay $70 by the time it was shipped and whatever, and get 4 pages on paving. Right?
Yeah.
Now, if they want to know how to do paving, they'll buy a 20-page digital book on Amazon. They'll pay $2 to $5 for it, and they'll get 20 pages on paving because it's just on paving. And the guy who wrote the home improvement book now has 20 different books up there, each of which are 20 pages long.
Mm-hmm.